You're watching Chicago Bears Now by Chat Sports. I am Harrison Graham. On today's show, we're going to take a look at some cut and some trade candidates following the draft, following rookie minicamp. Take a look at some players that could be on the move. But first, let's kind of take a look at the offseason outlook at this point. Draft obviously over as the Bears drafted several players and signed a bunch of UDFAs. Free agency ongoing, but, less moves happening at this point. I could see a couple of minor moves that could take place, and the Bears could do it. They've got about $16 million in cap space still. They could go out and sign a couple of players. They could sign even more if they ended up trading a couple of guys. Now, a couple million of that will go to their higher-up draft picks, but still they would have some room to go out and sign a couple of free agents. So before we get into my cut and trade candidates, be sure to join us on the Callin app. A lot of you guys are going to be watching this video on Wednesday afternoon. So tonight, Wednesday night, we're going to go live on Callin at 6 o'clock Eastern, at 5 o'clock Central Time. I will pin in the comments of this video the link to today's room, as they call it on Callin. Callin is basically an app where you guys hop in the caller queue. I take your calls. We chop Bears football back and forth. Then I go to the next caller, breaking down the latest news and rumors and whatever questions you have. It's basically Twitter Spaces on crack. That's the best way I can describe it. Great app, user-friendly. Almost have 200 subscribers over there. Want to grow that number, so go over there and subscribe. And by the way, the higher-ups at Callin reached out and said, hey, here are your power commenters on YouTube. Go ahead and specially invite them to Wednesday's show. I said, okay, I'll give them some love here on YouTube. So Mike, number one Bears fan, Tony, Karen, RJ, Steve, Franz, Broski Bear, Josh Hickman, and Robert. Welcome. Join us on Callin, and everybody watching, join us on Callin. And hey, if you want to be a power commenter, just comment more, and we'll get an updated list in the future. Chatsports.com/BearsCallin. Again, audio social podcasting app. We do live episodes every week. The cool thing about this app compared to a Twitter Spaces, after we're done, we publish it as just a podcast episode. So if you can't join us live, you can tune in for that as well. But most importantly, I want you to join live because it is your chance to call in and interact with me. Call me directly. I want to hear from all of you. So subscribe, join us. Again, pin comment the link to Wednesday night show. All right, now let's get to some Bears cut candidates. Number one, how about Sam Mustipher? I think cutting Sam Mustipher became a lot more likely after the NFL draft. After they signed Lucas Patrick, I said, okay, Sam Mustipher will be a cheap backup center. But then they went out and drafted a center in Doug Kramer. And if Kramer can show that he's got more guard versatility than a guy like Sam Mustipher, who I'm not sure has enough strength to play guard, then maybe Mustipher just gets cut and they worry about Doug Kramer's development. We know Patrick's going to start at center. Unless they feel like Sam Mustipher can start at right guard, which that seems like a long shot to me. I don't think Dakota Dozier should start. I think they should either go sign someone or hope that one of these rookies can pan out and start as a rook. But I think Sam Mustipher's time with the Bears could be coming to an end. Did not play well last year. I don't mind him as a backup, but you drafted a backup in Doug Kramer, who is a local guy anyway. So I don't know. I think there's a pretty decent chance Mustipher could be gone. What say you? Will Sam Mustipher make the Bears' 53-man roster? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I think it's 50-50 at best. The good news is this Bears regime is preaching competition, and he'll get the chance to compete throughout this offseason. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Duke Shelley, who's, hey, Pops, if you're watching, we've talked before on Twitter. Nothing against Duke. Loved him at K-State. He's had some moments in the NFL. This list is based on moves the Bears have made in the offseason. And what moves have they made? Okay, you signed Tavon Young, who is a starting caliber nickel in the NFL. And Duke Shelley is primarily a nickelback. Can play outside in a pinch, but he's undersized, so that makes it tough for him. You've got Thomas Graham and Kendall Vilder, who I think are assets that I would assume this Bears regime want to give more of a look than a Duke Shelley that has been in the NFL for a few years. This could be the end of the road for him in Chicago. Look, he's had opportunities. He's started several games. He's been very up and down. He's had moments, but he's gotten burned as well. Probably makes more sense to give a guy like a Thomas Graham or a Kendall Vilder more opportunities as a rotation guy. Now, What could separate him is if he's a really good special teams player, and if these other guys don't perform in that area, maybe that gives him a chance. But I expect Tavon Young to start, and assuming that's the case, it's going to be tough for Duke Shelley. All right, Nsimba Webster. I think this is going to end up being a no-brainer. I mean, he could be on the 90-man throughout the offseason, but basically he's a return specialist. Can play some at receiver as kind of a jet sweep, gadget type of guy, but you've got plenty of those guys, right? You've got a lot of guys that can return kicks and punts. You've got guys that can, do different things on offense. The Velus-Jones pick made this tough for him. You've got a guy like Byron Pringle who can return kicks and punts. Khalil Herbert can be a kick returner. Treston Ebner, that's the name I was thinking of. You drafted him. He can be a gadget guy and a returner. Where does Nsimba Webster fit? I don't see how he's on this football team this year. I think there's a good chance he gets cut. How about Jeremiah Tachu, who, if he were to get cut, he would have played 0 snaps for the Bears after signing a 2-year deal before last season. We'll see. You drafted Dominic Robinson out of Miami of Ohio. I think he's a guy I'd rather give snaps to, quite frankly. I think Charles Snowden, a UDFA from last year, is a guy I'd rather see get a look than the vet like a Tachu. Plus, you cut him post-June 1st, you save almost $2.5 million. That could be a legitimate rotation player that you go out and sign if you want to. So I think there's a decent chance he gets cut for financial reasons and just for youth reasons. Play some younger guys at that defensive end spot, especially considering they didn't even play last year due to injuries. Be sure to hit that subscribe button because our offseason coverage is on fire and we're not going anywhere. Daily videos here on YouTube, youtube.com/BearsNow. Subscribe. It's free. I want to hit 50,000 subs ASAP. We're going to be the next channel here at Chat Sports that hits that milestone. So help me get there. Let's get there as soon as possible. Subscribe for free videos. All right, so those are some cut candidates. How about some trade candidates now? Cody Whitehair. Now, you're probably thinking, dude, the Bears only have a few starting caliber offensive linemen, and Cody Whitehair is one of them. Yes, I agree with that statement. So the only reason this would make sense is if you sign someone else. Like, you would have to get another veteran guard that is simply just cheaper to come in and start at guard. And then you're going to say, well, you still have right guard fill too. Yeah, like a lot would have to go right to trade Whitehair. You'd probably have to sign someone. One of these rookies would have to emerge, or you move Borum inside. I acknowledge all of that. What I also would acknowledge, though, is that some teams could be interested because he has guard center flexibility, and if you can trade him, you save over $8 million. I think Cody Whitehair will be on this team this year, mostly because trading his contract is going to be tough, and you haven't done enough on the interior of your offensive line in free agency. But if you're trying to clear cap, and if you can find a trade partner and sign someone else that can do the job for cheaper and potentially better, this is probably the biggest tradable contract at this point in time that allows you to save the most money this year as opposed to future years. All right, let's go Robert Quinn. Obviously, we've talked about him a lot, connected to trade rumors throughout this offseason. There's been, articles, trade him to a contender like the Chiefs, the Rams, etc. Which, hey, for the right trade package, I'm open to that. Had a career type of year last year, 18.5 sacks. I don't think that'll happen again. I think he could give you 8, maybe even 10, maybe more. Who knows? But he's had a topsy-turvy career. I've said it for a while. I'll say it again. I'm not looking to just flat out trade Robert Quinn for whatever. But if a day 2 pick in 2023 now is on the table, I'd consider it. Now, I think this would be more of a midseason trade at this point. I think the Bears are going to roll with Quinn at the start of the year. Good veteran, good player still, good guy to have around for the young guys. But say the Bears aren't off to a great start, or say a major contending type of team is like, hey, we'll give you a second-round pick for Quinn at the trade deadline. It's pretty appealing for a guy like Ryan Poles looking to build this thing with youth and draft picks. So we'll see what happens there. You'd save a little bit of money as well. Should the Bears trade Robert Quinn? Type T for trade, type K for keep. Again, depends on the offer. I think it's a win-win. If you keep him, you have a good veteran player. If you trade him, probably means you're getting a second or third round pick. Either way is fine with me. All right, last player. I don't know what Mario Edwards' trade market would be, but he's always been productive now. He's kind of had some off-the-field problems in his career, so I don't know how many teams would necessarily bring him on. But for like a cheap day 3 pick, 6th, 7th round pick, you'd save a couple of million if you traded him. He's got some positional versatility, can play defensive end, can play inside as well. I think he could be a guy that gets traded for a day 3 pick, but we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. All right, so there you go. Some cut candidates, some trade candidates for the Chicago Bears. Now I want to hear from you. Name a player that the Bears should cut or trade before the NFL season. I listed 7 guys out. Your turn to name a player as well in the comments section. And be sure to join us on Callin Wednesday night, probably tonight for most of you watching, or if you're watching live on Tuesday, Wednesday night, 6 Eastern, 5 Central time. Your chance to call in. I want to hear from all of you, sports radio style. You know, it's like you pick up the phone like in the old days, call your favorite radio station and weigh in on the hot topics. That's what we're doing on Callin. Chatsports.com/BearsCallin. Pin comment the link to today's live show.